Welcome to another episode of the Punk Rock NFL Draft. My name is Dirty D from the Dirty T. Today we're talking about players we'd pound the table for versus players we'd let someone else draft. I got a lot of players to talk about. Some of these players I've already talked about in my previous videos. I'll say a quick thing, let you know that I've talked about them. If you'd like to hear my thoughts more so on those players, go ahead and watch those videos. I did still include them because it's true, and I wanted to more just give like, hey, if we get here, these are the guys that I'm standing up for in my draft room. But I will talk about guys I haven't talked about as much, a little more in depth. I've got a lot of guys to go through. For the pound the table players, I gave about 4 for the first round, 4 for the second round, 4 for the third round, 4 for day 3. Again, some of these guys are guys I've already talked about, so I won't go on too much about them, but if I haven't talked to them about them in depth, I might go a little on about them. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. On day 1, I'm pounding the table. If I need a receiver, first and foremost, there's a lot I like. I'm also a big Omar Cooper fan. But my number 1 receiver is Jordan Tyson. He's the most talented receiver, one of the most talented players in the draft. The injury history is something to look into. But if you don't have any major something that you think it's going to occur, like you're not seeing something that's going to require some sort of surgery or some chronic issue or something like that, I'm taking him as my number 1 receiver. If I need one, I'm saying this is my guy. I want him. I have him receiver 1. You want a wide receiver 1. You want a guy that could be a superstar, especially depending on the offense you're in. A guy that could eventually be like someone in the top 5 receiver in the NFL conversation. The only guy that fits that profile for sure for me is Jordan Tyson. The only thing I think stops him is injuries or himself. So you got to be comfortable in the personality. You got to be comfortable in the injuries. As far as I know, there's not really any personality problems, just injury history. And I would absolutely stand up, pound the table for him. I'm also pounding the table for Jacob Rodriguez in the first round if I need a linebacker. I haven't seen it as much lately, but I know that the Georgia guy, C.J. Allen, was getting a lot of love as a first-round pick for teams that needed linebackers. The only other linebacker I would feel comfortable taking in the first round is Jacob Rodriguez. Hint for something we'll talk about a little later. D'Angelo Pons is also on my list, pounding the table. I know he's small. I don't give a fuck. He's explosive. He's vertical, and he's got that dog in him. I want that in my secondary. Speaking of dogs, Christian Miller, not just because he went to Georgia, he's a Georgia Bulldog. True glass eater, dirty work. Best quote in the entire fucking draft when he said, someone asked him his pass rush plan. He said, I'm going through your face. Went on to talk about how, it's all about physicality, and he tries to be the most physical guy there. That rounds out all of my day 1 players. In the second round, guys I'm pounding the table for, look, A.J. Halsey, if I need a safety. Hell, in the end of the first round, if I want a safety. Before I go EMW, I'm going A.J. Halsey. That's my number 3 safety if the top 2 guys are gone. Especially if you want a guy that's going to take the ball away and is physical, can play in the box. If you run zone, not running a bunch of man, you run zone, and you want someone that can be a robber, can be an enforcer, A.J. Halsey is my guy. Also, if I need an offensive tackle or an offensive guard, hey, there's a few good ones, but I really like Jennings Dunker if I run a zone system. That's someone I'm looking at. Look, if one of the day 1 offensive tackles fall, fine. And if you're looking for a guard strictly and Pregnon is there, fine. But I think Jennings Dunker can be like what the Packers have done with guys like Zach Tom, and now they're doing it with Jordan Morgan, where you draft a guy that played tackle and was successful at it in college, you move him to guard, and a couple years later, if you need a right tackle, you move the guy that you already drafted and had playing guard out to tackle. I think he could do that. I think he offers that versatility, that toughness, that 2 years of elite play in college football. Man, just everything about him screams really good NFL player. Keith Abney Jr., again, want competitive toughness in my defensive backfield and those types of movement skills. I don't care if he's a little small. And then another guy that I would even, at the very end of round one, if I'm the 49ers, the Bills, the Dolphins, I need a receiver. But especially if we get into round two, Jeremy Bernard I think he could be a number one. He's probably just a really good number two, but he's going to be a damn good NFL receiver. I think he's being slept on. The people that talk about him as a third-round player, that's way too low to me for him. I think he's really good. Then we get to the third round. I start talking about the next part of day two. I got Jayshon Barham, edge out of Michigan. Sorry, my dog's excited about something. He also plays linebacker. I haven't talked as much about him, and I really like his athleticism. He can play as a linebacker on rundowns. He's got really big, powerful hands. He's really explosive. He's got some natural bend to him. You still have to teach him how to pass rush, but I believe you can do that. He showed really good flashes. Plus, I trust him on rundowns. He's someone that I think could develop into being a not just a designated pass rusher, but a full-time starting edge player or a hybrid player that could be a really good chess piece for your defense. I really like his makeup. I really like his athleticism. He's someone I'm pounding the table for. I'm pounding the table for Logan Jones because, as a scout said, he plays already like he's got 2 kids and a mortgage. Plays like a professional, plus he's extremely athletic. He hit a threshold of athleticism that only elite centers hit. I'm taking that guy as number one center. Dejuan Stribling. I've already talked about him. I love this receiver. Man, he does the dirty work, plus he's explosive. You got to love that. And then Jonah Coleman, again, I've talked about him as well, but I don't understand enough to talk about him being like a day 3 guy. This is a day 2 player for me. This is a third-round player for me that can be a starter in the league, offer you value all 3 downs. He can at least be a really solid number 2. And then my day 3 guys, I've talked about them before, but just quick shout-out. Jalen Husky, I have a second-round grade on, and he's just good at everything, good instincts, and he's only played the position for 2 years. I'm betting he's going to keep being a good player because a good player in the right way gives you a lot of effort. He's a good tackler. Only 10.6 missed tackle rate. I'm betting on that, especially if it gets to the 4th round. I'm betting on Devin Marshall because 16 passes defended. That was tied for second in all of college football last year. Those are numbers that I love. I love ball production. Extremely good in zone. Good tackler. Good against the run. Malik Benson, receiver, Oregon, extremely explosive, good ball tracker, physical down the field during his route, deep threat. I love that. Plus, he had moments where he showed elite route running. And then we got Emil Wagner. I think at worst, Emil Wagner is going to be a solid swing tackle, but of all of the project day 3 tackles, he's the one I'm most confident could be a starter. So we talked about the guys that I like, that I'm pounding the table for, that I might have valued above other people. And if we get in discussions in those rounds at certain points, I'm really standing up for those players. But there's also going to be players that are viewed, whether it's around the league or by the media, as, being projected in the spot that you wouldn't take them. Those are guys I'd let someone else draft. So now we're going to talk about those guys. Again, I've talked about some of these guys already, so I'm not going to go too much into it. Monroe Freeling, offensive tackle out of Georgia, is my first guy if we're on day 1. Just not taking him. Don't like he's a waist bender. Needs to add strength. Keldrick Falk, edge, Auburn, great run defender. I absolutely take him in the 2nd round, but he's not a good pass rusher, and I don't see that player projecting well right away as a first round player. Ty Simpson, Alabama. I don't know how much I went into Ty Simpson, so we're gonna have the Ty Simpson conversation. I just don't think Ty Simpson is really a NFL, like a good NFL starting quarterback. I have him ranked 64th. It's a little hint. Have this conversation more when I drop my top 100. I just would not value him in the first round, especially if you have to trade up for him. I just don't see a guy that I would trust as a starter. I think he can play in the league, but probably is like at best probably the ceiling somewhere around 25th to 20th best quarterback in the league. He's probably gonna more often than not be closer to 40th, 45th. Caleb Lomu, offensive tackle, Utah, just not enough play strength, and I see someone I could really easily see being a bust in the league. CJ Allen is another guy who's a good player. I think he's a good player. He's a good run defender. He's tough. He's hard nosed, but he offers you nothing against the pass. And I wouldn't take like as a coverage player. I don't think he's good in coverage. He's not a three down player. I'm not taking a 2 down player in the first round. Avion Terrell, another guy, good player, tough as nails, but he's 5'10", 180 and he ran a 4.64. That's not a guy you take in the first round. That's a nickelback, and really that projects as a second or third round nickelback. Emmanuel McNeil Warren, look, maybe at the very end of round one, just because of how weak the class is considered. But even then, like, I love the peanut punch. I love the length. But I see him just more as like a good, like just like a starter. I think he's going to be a starter, but I have questions about how quickly he'll adapt to the level of competition and how well he'll really translate. I don't think he'll be nearly as dominant. He missed 15% of his tackles in the MAC. I could see that projecting to more missed tackles in the NFL. I like the length. I question some of the play strength. I question the athleticism in the NFL and the true comfortability in coverage once he gets to the NFL. He's playing better athletes. Just I would take him in the second round. He's a great pick in the second round, especially like somewhere from picks, 35 to 45. I think that's good value. That's where you should probably take him. Um, I wouldn't take him in the first round. Caleb Banks, simply because of the reoccurring foot injuries at 330 pounds, that's a big concern. Caden Proctor, those types of guys, the weight, he had weight problems. He has some issues with foot speed. Those tackles, I see them bust more often than not, or just have very limited success before busting. That's my concern with Proctor. And then Malachi Lawrence is the last player I have on this list. He's my number 50 player in the entire class. Again, spoiler, sorry. I think he's a explosive linear rusher, but I question his short area quickness. I question his true bend and ability to flatten the arc, and I question his run defense. So I wouldn't take him in the first round. When we get to day 2, Chase Visantes, I wouldn't take him until the 4th round. He makes a lot of mistakes as a run blocker. He has a hard time sustaining blocks at times, and waist bends too often. I've already talked about not liking him, but I can't stop talking about not liking him. Apparently, Brandon Cisse at least wouldn't take round 2. If you want to take him, closer to the later portion of round 3, that's fine. But I just think he's not ready for the NFL, and I'm not going to bet he will be. But I like the physicality. Chris Bell, another guy, maybe at the very end of round 3, betting on some of the traits, but there's a lot of things that don't like. I'll have the Chris Bell conversation here because I haven't had it on this channel. Almost all of his production came from drag slants, hitches, screens. He is physical. He didn't beat press well, but he's physical in his press. He didn't let people push him around. He's a physical dude. He's not afraid of physicality, so that's good. That translates. I like that. That's great. But he doesn't get enough separation in the way he plays. I don't, just because he's fast doesn't mean I think he's going to learn how to get separation. And I think that, Even his contested catch win rate was exactly 50%. It's a true 50-50 ball with him in the air. And sometimes he'd short arm it. He'd let defenders get into his body, or he'd show his hands too early. Things that really makes me think of Xavier Legette. I just they got most of his production just on easy, get him into open space, get the ball off his hands, and let him be bigger, faster, stronger than anyone, not with skill. And that doesn't win in the NFL. You have to have both, or you have to be such a freak athlete. He also is injured, so hey, if he is back in time for training camp, that's good. If not, that's terrible. But what if it zaps some of explosiveness? And that's what makes him a good player. Chris Brazzell, super low on, fourth round grade. Wouldn't take him day 1 or 2. Struggles with physicality. I don't like that. Struggles with press. He doesn't do a lot of NFL stuff, which isn't his fault. He has a lot of the Tennessee receiver issues. He does do a couple things at the top of his routes that are nice, but there's a lot, there's going to be a large learning curve for him already, but I've seen him get squeezed to the sidelines too often. I've seen him struggle with press too often. I've seen him shy away from contact too often, and it's a contact sport. He's, 198. That lack of play strength is evident, and I think that unwillingness to be physical is evident, and I don't like that. Same with Zachariah Branch. I don't like his profile. Not really the physicality part, just his profile. He's completely off my board after the issues he just had. He was already, I think, closer to maybe even a fifth-round grade for me, because that player just doesn't play. Like that, it doesn't work in the NFL. 5'8", 180, maybe 175. I think it was 177. And all of his productions was on screens almost. Like a crazy amount of production was passes behind the line of scrimmage. He's got slot size, and all of his production is manufactured touches. That almost never works in the NFL. I don't see it working, and now you're adding character concerns. I'm not touching him. Kamari Ramsey, I got a fourth-round grade on. I'm not taking him in the first 3 days of the draft. I think that's starting to be more closer to consensus, but the 2024 tape, the run defense was just so bad. He's a liability. Genesis Smith, I've talked about the worst tackling technique. He runs up to make the tackle, and then he literally stops before contact, puts his arms out like he's like a traffic stop, trying to lead traffic, and he's like, stop. It's that won't work in the NFL. Dominic Orange, I've also talked a little bit about why I'm not as big as him, but I would take him at the very end of round 3, compensatory pick range. That's where I would start to think him. Dalen Everett, I don't think I talked too much about Dalen Everett because I spent all my time talking about Brandon Cisse on the cornerback episode, but like he's got good size, he's got good speed, and he's great at just chasing receivers around all day. Receivers get open on him. He's just chasing receivers around while they're open. He just doesn't cover well. I don't care that he has the ability to. He doesn't do it. I'm not taking that. And then the last guy we're going to talk about is Ted Hurst. I'm also lower on because he's such a developmental player. I understand the traits and the things that he does that you're like, wow, that those numbers translate. And you know what? I'll be fair. If you're the Rams, that would be a great spot for him, I think. That'd be a good fit for him. Maybe even a team like the 49ers, that'd be a good fit. I can think of teams, especially if you're good at developing receivers, if you're good at putting receivers into positions to succeed, I could see it playing, but he played at Georgia State and he struggled getting separation. He faced a lot of press. I don't know that he was great at beating it. It's probably why he faced so much of it. Um, and then even at the Senior Bowl, he had that one amazing catch. Cool. It's the only thing he did the whole week. So personally, especially if I'm a team like as a Raiders fan, I don't really want Ted Hurst. I guess I could see it if you're just adding him to the room to develop and be better later on, sure. But I don't know. There's guys I like a lot more than Ted Hurst. Personally, I think the Rams would be a good fit, but other than that, I don't know that I can think of a lot of teams that I think are good fits. All right, that's it for my episode today. Next couple episodes, we're going to be dropping the top 100, so look forward to that. Going to be dropping a round one mock. Look forward to that. My name is Dirty D from Dirty T. I hope you have a great rest of your fucking day.